Most men believe that if they make enough promises, they can bring her back. They think if they say the right words, if they vow to change, to do better, to never hurt her again, she will suddenly change her mind and return. They cling to the idea that words are enough to reverse her decision, but reality doesn't work that way. She does not come back because of what you say. Promises, apologies, and speeches rarely shift her heart. What truly stirs her is something deeper, something beyond language. She comes back when she feels your absence. She comes back when she sees your transformation, when she realizes that the man she left behind no longer exists. This is what most men fail to grasp. They focus on convincing her, but convincing is weakness. Convincing communicates dependence. The real power is found in becoming a man who no longer needs to prove or persuade. This is not about playing games. It's not manipulation. It's not about making her jealous or punishing her with silence. It's about evolution. You change not to win her back, but to rise into a version of yourself who wouldn't beg for anyone's return. The irony is, when you evolve for yourself, when you focus on your own growth and stop chasing her shadow, that's when she begins to notice. She begins to question her decision. She begins to replay her choice, not because you asked her to, but because the evidence of your transformation speaks louder than anything you could have said. Words are air. Change is substance. The first step is to stop feeding her certainty. When she leaves, she believes she knows exactly what you will do next. She expects you to text, to check in, to watch her stories, to beg for another chance. That certainty gives her control. She feels secure in the belief that no matter what, you will orbit her world. But when you disappear not with anger, not with childish games, but with quiet self-respect, you shatter that pattern. Suddenly, the story she told herself no longer fits. The script she had written in her mind about you doesn't play out, and this unsettles her. Here is a psychological truth. The human mind obsesses over uncertainty, far more than it obsesses over certainty. If she knows what you're doing, she can dismiss you and move on. But if she cannot figure you out, if she cannot predict your next move, you live in her mind. She replays conversations, wonders about your silence, imagines scenarios. The lack of clarity becomes a loop she cannot escape. That is why silence has power. Not the silence of bitterness or punishment, but the silence of strength, of a man who refuses to beg for validation. Most men ruin this stage by breaking the silence too soon. They send a message. They watch her profile. They look for crumbs of her attention. Every time they do this, they feed her certainty again. They remind her that she still has control. But when you stop feeding her certainty, when you stand firm in unpredictability, you shift the entire balance. You go from being the man chasing to the man she cannot stop thinking about. And that is the beginning of evolution, the quiet transformation that speaks without words. The next step is changing the way you frame the story in your own mind. Most men walk around believing they were abandoned, that they were the one left behind, as if they lost everything when she walked away. This mindset keeps them trapped in weakness, because they view themselves as the victim, as the one who no longer has power. But the truth is very different. She didn't just walk away from you as a man. She walked away from everything you brought into her world. She lost the stability you offered. She lost the support you gave when no one else was there. She lost the grounding energy of your masculine presence. She lost the consistency and reliability you provided without her even asking. When you truly step back and see it clearly, you realize she didn't leave you with all the power, she left you with all the value. When you carry the wrong frame, you end up chasing. You tell yourself you need to prove something, to remind her of what you had, to show her she made a mistake. But when you carry the right frame, everything shifts. Instead of thinking, she left me, you begin to think, she lost me. And that single change transforms the way you walk, the way you act, the way you live. Because you're no longer moving like someone who is incomplete. You're moving like someone who knows he is the prize, who knows his presence is worth something. This shift isn't about arrogance. It's about clarity. It's about recognizing your own value and refusing to hand it over to someone who couldn't see it at the stone. When you internalize this mindset, you stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to justify why she should come back. You stop begging for another chance. Instead, you begin to move with calmness, with strength, with the steady confidence of someone who knows what he offers is rare. And that calmness unsettles her because she expected you to crumble. She expected you to chase, to plead, to act like every other man she has known. But instead, you carry yourself as if she is the one who walked away from something priceless, and that thought begins to work on her more powerfully than any words ever could. Loss doesn't hit all at once. At first, she may feel free. At first, she may feel like she made the right decision. But time has a way of revealing truth. When you step back fully and stop supplying her with attention, support, and validation, the absence grows louder. She starts to realize the difference between what she had and what she thought she wanted. And this is where regret begins, not because of anything you said, but because of what you stopped giving. The frame of loss is everything. If you see yourself as abandoned, you will live like someone who lost. But if you understand she walked away from a man who carried value, you stand taller. You no longer ask, why did she leave me? Instead, you remind yourself, she lost me. And the moment you embody that truth, you stop chasing her and you start building yourself. That is the power of redefining the frame of loss. It transforms not just how she sees you, but how you see yourself. Transformation becomes real when it's no longer about proving something to anyone else, especially to her. Too many men fall into the trap of broadcasting their progress, showing off their workouts, posting gym selfies, flashing money, or dropping hints online about how much better they're doing. They think that if she sees it, she'll regret her decision, but in truth, that kind of performance comes across as weak. It communicates that every move is still about her attention. Real growth doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows itself quietly, steadily, without the need for validation or applause. The most powerful changes are the ones no one sees until they are undeniable. You don't go to the gym to show her you're in shape. You go to the gym because you respect yourself enough to strengthen your body. You don't build your finances so she'll notice your success. You do it because discipline and independence matter to you. You don't pursue your purpose to prove her wrong. You do it because without a mission, life feels empty. Growth done for external approval is fragile. It fades when the applause dies. But growth done for yourself, in silence, carries weight that lasts. And here's the thing: silence unsettles people. When she can't track you, when she can't predict what you're doing, when she has no idea how you're living now, the mystery gnaws at her. One day, without you lifting a finger to prove anything, she might hear about the man you've become. A friend might mention you in passing. She might see you by chance. And in that moment, it hits her harder than 1,000 curated posts ever could. Because now it's not about you trying to show off, it's about undeniable evidence that you changed, that you evolved, and that you did it without needing her to witness it. That's the kind of growth that shakes people. That's the kind of growth that makes her question whether she ever really knew you at all. The truth is, the more you broadcast, the more predictable you become. She expects you to try to show her what she lost. She expects you to seek her attention. But when you go silent, when you focus on building a new reality without the need to announce it, you remove her sense of control. Suddenly, she doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know if you're hurting, thriving, or forgetting. That lack of certainty breeds tension, and tension is magnetic. Women are drawn not to men who explain themselves, but to men who leave questions unanswered, who carry themselves like a mystery yet to be solved. This is why silent growth is so powerful. It doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is what pulls her thoughts back toward you. She begins to wonder why you didn't react like every other man she's known. Why didn't you chase her? Why didn't you fight for her? Why did you disappear into your own world instead of clinging to hers? The unanswered questions create a tension that keeps you alive in her mind long after she thought she'd forgotten you. That's the paradox. By growing in silence, you speak louder than you ever could with words. The real dividing line between men who rise after heartbreak and men who collapse is emotional control. Most men, when faced with rejection or loss, let their emotions dictate every move. They lash out in anger, they beg for another chance, they drown themselves in desperate attempts to be heard. But that kind of behavior only proves the very thing she already believes that without her. You are unsteady, incomplete, and powerless. The man who rises is the one who refuses to let emotions govern his actions. He feels the storm, he experiences the pain, but he does not let it move him into weakness. That calm steadiness is what separates him from nearly everyone else. And that's exactly what makes him unforgettable. Emotional control is not suppression. It isn't pretending you don't care or burying your feelings until they rot inside you. It's mastery. It's being able to acknowledge the pain without letting the pain define you. It's having the strength to choose your response instead of being a slave to impulse. When you remain calm, even in the middle of rejection, you display a rare quality. You show that your worth is not tied to her approval, that your identity is not dependent on her presence. And paradoxically, the moment she realizes you no longer need her validation is the moment she begins craving your presence again. The harder you cling, the further she drifts. The calmer you remain, the more she wonders why you aren't breaking. But emotional control cannot exist if you live in limbo. Too many men pause their entire life waiting for her return. They hold back on opportunities, put their passions on hold, and live as if the world will only restart once she decides to come back. That mindset is poison. It keeps you stuck in a cage of uncertainty. The truth is, the moment you stop waiting for her is the moment you set yourself free. Freedom is what changes everything. When you live fully, when you pour your energy into your purpose, when you accept that she may never return, you create a sense of independence that is magnetic. Women feel that shift. They sense when a man has detached from needing them, and that detachment is more attractive than any chase ever could be. Of course, freedom and control are tested most during silence. The silence after she leaves feels unbearable at first. The empty nights, the quiet mornings, the absence of her voice, it all feels like a weight pressing on your chest. Most men break it. They reach out, they text, they call, they scroll through her life online, anything to escape that silence. But here's the truth. Silence is where your strength is built. If you can master the silence, you master yourself. You learn patience, you rebuild your self-respect, and you harden your emotional resilience. While she runs from silence, you embrace it. And when you do, the silence turns from weakness into power. That is why emotional control is the foundation. It allows you to move forward instead of waiting in limbo. It allows you to live with freedom instead of dependency. And it allows you to master silence instead of fearing it. A man who controls his emotions cannot be broken by loss. He becomes the calm in the storm, the steady force that no rejection can shake. And that kind of man is not only unforgettable, he becomes untouchable. The man she left behind cannot be the man she finds if she ever comes back. This is where most men stumble. They go through all the motions of growth, they maintain silence, they build themselves up. But when she finally reappears, they collapse back into old patterns. They become soft again, desperate again, reactive again, and in doing so, they erase all the progress they made. The truth is simple. If you've done the work, she should never meet the same man she walked away from. She should encounter someone new, someone calm, disciplined, and grounded, a man transformed not by her absence, but by his own decision to rise. When she returns, she will test you. She may not even realize it, but she will search for signs of the man she once knew. She look for the cracks of insecurity, for the old habits of neediness, for the desperation that once kept her in control. If you fall back into those patterns, she will feel validated in her choice to leave. But if she finds someone entirely different, someone stronger, sharper, and more self-assured, the entire frame of the story changes. Suddenly, she has to confront the reality that the man she left behind is gone. And in his place stands someone she may not even deserve anymore. This is why becoming unrecognizable is so powerful. It's not just about changing how you look, though physical transformation can be part of it. It's about shifting how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you react, how you live. Your energy should be different. Your presence should feel heavier, more certain, more deliberate. She should sense that you are no longer the man who needed her validation to feel whole. She should sense that whether she stays or goes, you remain grounded in your own strength. That realization cuts deeper than any speech, deeper than any attempt at proving your worth. It forces her to acknowledge that she misjudged you, that she underestimated who you could become. But here lies the ultimate twist. By the time she comes back, it may not even matter to you anymore. Because the true goal of this journey was never her return, was your rebirth. The victory isn't in watching her regret her decision. The victory is in no longer needing her decision to define your life. When you've done the work, when you've grown in silence, when you've mastered your emotions and reframed the loss, you discover something greater than reconciliation. You discover freedom. You no longer crave her validation. You no longer chase her presence. You stand on your own, whole and unshaken, and in that state, whether she returns or stays gone is irrelevant. If she comes back to a man who doesn't crumble. If she stays away, you still thrive. Either way, you've already won. The relationship was never the prize. The real prize was the man you were forced to become through the pain of loss. That is the irony she will one day realize. She didn't just lose you, she lost the chance to know the man you are now. But by then, it won't matter, because you will have already moved beyond needing her to see it.